Hello there! Excuse the lighting here is a bit orange, which is nice because it's a nice glow, however not great for filming. Sorry about that, it's night time. What can you do? What can you do? Anyway, today I am bringing you my top 10 books of 2014. I did contemplate doing a whole 14 thing to match in with 2014, then I thought no, because that's just going to get worse and worse every year till we're doing like 30 books, and that's too many. So, just going to do 10 because it's easy. That's that. Basically, I have been sort of bearing in mind this video throughout the year of my reading and sort of writing down books that I think could potentially be in it. And I thought I was going to struggle with this. I thought there wasn't many books that actually made the list. But I was looking back at my shelves and I kind of was surprised at the books that stood out for me that didn't make the list. I suppose the more you sort of spend time away from a book and it matures in your mind, it sort of does jump out at you. So I easily made the 10, even had to shuffle some around to get them in. So that was great. I've done reviews separately for a lot of these books, which I will link down below. Not all of them, admittedly. They will be down below, and let's get into it. I've done this not in order of my favourites, because they're all kind of on an even keel. So I'm just going to do it, or try to do it, in the order I read them. I can't strictly remember, so it might not be quite right, but it's as far as I can remember. So first, we will start with Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. Some of you may remember when I read this and went absolutely crazy for it, because it was just so good. I still love it. I still want to reread it over and over again. It's just amazing. Basically, this is a story of Oscar Schell, and his dad has died in 9/11. It's basically about his dealing with his grief and how he feels about the situation. He sort of goes on a magical mystery tour to solve this mystery that he thinks his dad has left for him. And he ends up going around the city and meeting lots of different characters, and it's just gorgeous. I really, really recommend it. Maybe if you're into sort of very plot-based novels, I wouldn't recommend it because it's not about the plot with this, it's about the writing, and it's about Oscar and just how gorgeous a character he is. He's amazing. He's a 9-year-old and he really thinks like a 9-year-old. He's very intelligent for his age, but he's also very straightforward, black and white, and he takes everything at face value, and it's just special. That is all I can say. Next we have The Shock of the Fall by Nathan Filer. I wasn't sure if this was going to make it on my list because it's a shame. I read it not that long after Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which has just topped everything and is one of my all-time favourites, and this didn't quite live up to that. That said, it is still really good in its own right. The reason that it kind of didn't live up to Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and I contrasted them so strongly in my mind, was that they're both dealing with quite similar themes. This is about Matthew, who loses his father Simon when he is quite young and sort of harbours a lot of guilt about what happened. But in this, we don't stay with him when he's a kid. He grows up and develops schizophrenia, and we sort of follow him through that journey as well. So it was kind of different in the end to Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, but I couldn't help making this sort of comparison. What I liked about this was that it dealt with mental illness in a very good way, and I liked the fact that from going into it, I thought that he was going to have mental illness because of his brother's death, but what I found was that it was more, his brother's death was very much a central part of his mental illness, but his mental illness was shaped by his brother's death more than caused by it. I thought that was really good. I also didn't know it was about schizophrenia when I went into it. I thought it was about depression or something like that. So it's really good. I'm not going to say too much about it because it kind of ruins it. I went into it not knowing much, and I would like anyone else to go into it not knowing much because I think it's a really pleasant surprise. That's all I'll say, but it is good, and it's a shame that I contrasted the two because I think I would have held it in much higher esteem if I'd read it before, or maybe sort of further along the line, but there we go. Then we've got Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This is just Game of Thrones. I have also read Clash of Kings, but this is not a all of them situation because I didn't enjoy Clash of Kings as much and I wouldn't put it in my top 10, but Game of Thrones was a pleasant surprise for me. I'm not a fantasy lover, and find fantasy quite daunting, and this obviously is daunting. So I went into this sort of not expecting much. I know everyone was like, oh, it's so good, you'll be pleasantly surprised. I was like, no, I won't, no, I won't. I was, admittedly. I loved it. It was fast paced. I really got into the characters and the story. I found it easy to follow. It's not a complex fantasy world. It's pretty much like our world with dragons in it and in the oldie worldy days. So it was nice and easy, and I really enjoyed it. I won't say too much because everyone's probably read this anyway, but it was good, and yeah, a pleasant surprise actually. You may have noticed it's a different lighting and stuff. That is because I forgot one book off the list. I forgot it because it wasn't in my pile. I forgot to bring it here. It's at my mum's house. That is Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury. I might try and insert a picture here, but if not, you know, imagine what it looks like. This was an amazing book. Again, it's not very plot driven, so if you like really fast paced plot driven books, it won't be for you, but literary wise it is amazing. The writing is beautiful. It's basically about, it's kind of semi autobiographical about Ray Bradbury's childhood, summer times in Illinois, and it's just a lovely kind of love letter to the summer holiday when you're a kid, and like really captures the excitement and the sort of spreading of the days and everything like that. And it's basically about their holiday and what happens in their town around them and how they sort of interpret it, and it's just lovely, really, really beautiful. Again, I read out some in my review, which I will link down below, but yeah, it was beautiful and spectacular. Then we have The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I have to say, I wasn't as taken by this as a lot of people have been. It wasn't like an amazing, it's not even one of my top 10s, but it still deserves to be in there because it's still got a lot of merit. It's basically about a girl called Liesel who was living in Nazi Germany in World War II, and it's pretty much just about how life was for the Germans in that time, which I think is a really good take on it, because going through a war as well, and that wasn't pleasant for them either, and a lot of them were innocent anyway, and it's just an interesting standpoint on it. Also, this is written from the viewpoint of death, which I had my issues with, but I admire the fact that it was something a bit different, and in most cases it did work. There was some stuff that I had problems with it, but generally it was fine. And yeah, it's really neatly written. There's some really gorgeous, heartwarming parts in here, and I just think it's a really good standpoint on World War II. So I would definitely recommend that. Next, we have Sarah Gruen's Water for Elephants. Now, this book had me from the get-go. The first sort of chapter is just spectacular, and the writing is breathtaking, amazing. If you watch my separate review, I actually read out a passage, and that is the passage that made me love this book forever. But I have to say, throughout, it doesn't sort of keep up the same momentum of writing, but that doesn't matter because it just grabbed me from the beginning, and it's a really gorgeous story. It basically follows a man who drops out of university and finds himself in a circus. He ends up being the circus vet because he had been studying veterinary stuff at university, and they end up getting an elephant, and he and I can't remember what her name is, the main woman of the circus. It's one of these books without a blurb, sorry about that. The main woman of the circus, they end up having to train this elephant, and obviously this sort of stuff goes on. It's interesting. It's the first story I've read that's been based in a circus, and it was a really interesting sort of place to put a story. It was fascinating. There's a lot in here about sort of the underground shady stuff that went on in the circus. So it was pretty harrowing. There's also some harrowing stuff in here about the abuse that went on with animals. There's some really horrible scenes, but I still enjoyed it, even though I don't normally like that kind of thing, and it really sticks in my head because I think it's important to talk about the fact that it happened. So it's really good, a really nice setting for a story, and it's quite magical and lovely, and yeah, just the writing is really good, so I would definitely recommend that one. Then we have A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. I was, again, oohing and ahhing whether to put this in because it didn't grip me. I mean, it's quite thick, it didn't grip me, it took me a while to read. That said, the writing in here is spectacular. I am now an avid John Irving fan. I've got a few more of his books ready to read, and I think I'll enjoy anything he's written. The writing is really good, the story was really unique, and even though it took me a while and it's quite a slow story, it kind of is a slow burner, you don't mind, because there's something just gorgeous about it. This is basically about two young boys' friendship, pretty much. and it focuses around this boy, Owen Meany, who's quite a unique kind of person. He's small. He's basically just described as small and has quite a freaky voice that kind of scares a lot of people. And he generally comes across as quite a strange, sort of almost goblin-like person, and yet you love him. There's something really tender about him. I think because you meet him from a young age. I mean, as he grows up, he doesn't do nice things, and he's not generally a nice person, but because you met him when he was a kid, you kind of have this tenderness for him. And basically, the story centres around the incident that Owen Meany accidentally, with a cricket ball, kills his best friend's mother. That's not ruining anything, it does say it on the back. And he therefore, from that incident, takes it that he is sort of committing God's acts almost, and he thinks that there's some godlike stuff about him, and he therefore begins to believe that he has premonitions and stuff like this, and it's just about him really and their friendship, and it's unique and interesting, and I enjoyed it, and the writing, as I say, is gorgeous. I would definitely recommend it for the writing. Then we have The Neverending Story by Michael End. This is completely not on the same theme as the other books, but it had to be done. I really enjoyed this. I have to say the first 150 pages, which is what is in the film, were my favourite bit. This book actually goes on. It's just magical. Basically, this is about Bastian. He is a child who is being bullied, so he ends up hiding in a local bookshop and stealing a book, which ends up being The Neverending Story, which is a magical story which, while he is reading it, he starts to realise that his actions are having an influence on the story. So say he will gasp, and in the story it will say somebody gasped and everybody looked around not knowing where it was coming from and stuff like this. And Bastian ends up having a very important part in this story, is all I will say. It's just magic, and it's fun, and it's enjoyable, and what more do you need? Magic. Then, Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler and illustrated by Myra Kalman. This book took me completely by surprise. I was not expecting to love it. I was thinking it was just going to be some soppy, heartbroken teenage novel, and I adored it. Basically, I will show you the beauty of this book. There's loads of this and lots of beautiful stuff. And this is basically a story which is fascinating. It's such a unique concept. This girl has broken up with her boyfriend, her first sort of proper boyfriend in high school, and she is returning to him a box of all the stuff that she kept from their relationship, with a long letter explaining, kind of going through their relationship, but also explaining why each item came to mean something to her about their relationship. And it's just fascinating. It's really well done. And it basically just leads towards why they broke up, and yeah, it's really good. I can remember it bothered me at first because it's written in quite hipster language, for kids, you know, talking to each other in America and all this, and it bothered me because I was like, there's no need for that, but actually within a few pages I'd forgotten about it because the memento of the story just takes you away. It's gorgeous, and I would probably say this is one of the top, and it's going to go down in my book history as one of my faves, and I am going to be rereading it. It's also gorgeous spine. Then, the last book, and the most recent that I've read, actually, I read it, literally finished it half an hour ago, is probably I think this, in terms of keeping it in my heart and taking it with me everywhere I go, is the top of the year. It has to be Patti Smith, Just Kids. Now, I didn't know anything about Patti Smith when I picked up this book. I'm sorry, I'm putting it down because it's making my face go funny colours. So, yeah. I didn't know anything about Patti Smith when I picked up this book. My boyfriend told me she was something to do with the punk movement. I didn't know. And after reading this, I think I'm definitely going to get some of her records and just listen to her. And even if it's not music I like, which I don't think it will be, I'm going to love it because... Basically, I would recommend this book to anybody who wants to pursue an artistic career. See about her life, and her life with her friend Robert, who's pictured here with her. He dies, and it ends up being pretty much a love letter / a eulogy to him, and also just a sort of memoir of her early years and her quest to become an artist. Quite young, I think she was probably about 20, 21. She decided that that was it. She was going to become an artist. She left home and she went to New York, and just it went from there really. She met Robert quite early and they ended up living together for quite a long time. They had a very strange relationship where they were sort of sexual with each other but they weren't, and they were together but they weren't. But it was just, it's just so touching, like, honestly. And for me, I mean, the artistic stuff was what I really took from it, and the fact that, you know, they just left everything and were like, we're going to be artists. And it's so unrealistic, but it worked out really well for them. Although not at times. And it's just, I think, really lovely and touching, and it's one of those books that you don't get often, but you just feel it as you're reading it, that it's going to stay in your heart for a long time, and you're probably going to reread it throughout your life, and this is one of those, and I haven't had one of those in so long, and thanks to this I am actually rereading one of the books that I got the first feeling of that from, which is On the Road by Jack Kerouac, because it got me in that mood of just like American artist dreams, and just, oh, lovely. So I would definitely recommend this for anyone who's interested in writing, painting, taking photographs, anything like that, and they want to pursue a life in that. It's not all pretty. There's obviously some trials and tribulations, but in the end it just makes you feel like anything's possible. I think that's what I got from this. Okay, so that's everything. Happy New Year to everybody, and I will see you in 2015. Goodbye!